Hey, what's up, guys? Chad Hermansen here with Mental Edge Training Coach. Today, I'll be talking with Chris Martinez. Chris is a local product out here in Las Vegas. He has taught, he has coached, he has done many things out here in the Las Vegas area. He helps coach the club team, the Southern Nevada Bulls. Has had some great success out here. So enjoy this conversation with Chris Martinez. Hey, what's up, Chris? How's it going, man?
I'm doing well, Chad. How you been?
I'm doing well. Doing well. We're in the middle of July right now. Still in somewhat COVID lockdown.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
you're a teacher at Centennial High School in Las Vegas.
Yep.
Um, let's maybe start there. You mentioned we've been talking a little bit before about when the first time we met. You were a coach at Arbor High School in Las Vegas.
Yep.
And I coached just 1 year at high school. It was at Bishop Gorman. My best friend is Nick Day. We
Yep.
grew up
Absolutely.
together, right? He's the head coach at this time. I'm going to let you tell the story about maybe the rivalry between Gorman and Arborview that year.
Yeah, so that was 2012. So I think that was my third year as a head coach there. And my first year, I guess, kind of going, or my second year going back, we had a very young team. I think we had one senior in 2011. And that year we struggled. We didn't make the playoffs, but we started three freshmen, three sophomores, and it was just a time of, it was a very trying year. For me, being my second year as a head coach, not really knowing what to do yet, I guess. So we watched them develop for that year, played a really heavy, senior or summer and fall schedule. And you know what? I think that really helped us, moving into that 2012 year. We played the best we possibly could, and kids learn adversity. So when we get into that 2012 year, before we get into that region almost championship game with Bishop Gorman, I still go back. I still, coaching even today, I still bring this up. Our first day of intramurals in October. We had every single kid show up in the program, which in high school with club, baseball is pretty heavy now, and other sports. I mean, it was rare.
Yeah.
And just watching that group when they showed up that first day, I remember looking at our coaches like, just something's different. We had some talent. Don't get me wrong, we had a lot of talent. But just the way they showed up that day, it kind of carried over. Had a really good year. I mean, we had a 19 game, I think it was a 19-game win streak up until we got to the playoffs, and confidence was through the roof. And we get to that first game of the playoffs, played Sierra Vista, and we kind of reverted back. We played scared. I mean, I don't know what it was. They were confident all year. We ended up sneaking out a win, and then getting to Bishop Gorman, which at the time, I don't remember what you guys were ranked number 1 or 2 or 5 all year. You guys were ranked, pretty heavy. You look at that lineup that had Joey Gallo in there, Blasco, Ketchen, Roper, Seawald. It was loaded, So we get there, and Zach Quintana pitched for us that day, who was a third rounder for us, and he wanted the ball the whole year. He's like, Coach, if we get Gorman, I want the ball. You're not taking me out. I don't care what you do. I'm not coming out of that game. And yeah, still remember, man. I mean, we were down 3. I think we were down 3 in the 5th or the 6th inning, and you want to talk about everything going our way. And I think we had first and second. We hit into a routine ground ball to third base to Joey Gallo. Big leaguer, fields it. Don't know how this happened. Never seen this before in my life. Throws the ball to roll double play and hits a runner in the helmet.
Yeah.
Chase. Somehow, everybody's safe.
Right.
Next hitter is swinging bunts, stays fair on the third base line. We score one. We have a little chopper here. Zach Quintana, who was pitching that day, ends up clearing the bases with a double. So we end up taking the lead going into the last inning, and then here comes Gorman again. Like they were always there. I mean, there was nothing you could do. And ends up 2 outs, guy on third base. Quintana, I don't even know what pitch he was on that time at that particular, facing Jarrell Latham, another BYU guy. Our catcher clanks a fastball. I mean, I don't know, I've just flat out booted it, just missed it flat out. Kicks off the backstop. We flip, catch and tag, close play at the plate. I mean, I still think he's out. 99% of everyone else who sees some of the videos and whatnot thinks he's safe, but we're able to hold him off, and we end up winning. And that moment right there, I think as a coach was one of the most exciting things for me. Not just so much that we beat Bishop Gorman or win that day, but just to see the kids' reactions of, man, all the hard work they did, and to see how much they believed that whole year that they belonged. Not just we got a game scheduled. It's like, no, we can go do this. And after the game, our kids, pumped up, excited, one of our kids got a little bit too excited, ran his mouth a little bit, and then I'm thinking in my head, oh gosh, don't blow this, don't get into a brawl right now. And we won't be suspended, and then it's all over. But I'd break it up a little bit, and and then we got to play Gorman again, and Gorman came, beating Gorman once, was tough to do. Beating them twice, they're a great ball club. I mean, that's, running all the state championships they had, and especially that year, they were very talented. But, we ended up losing a real tough game, region championship in 8 innings, 2-1 to them. We kind of ran out of gas, and, they went on to, compete well at state. So, yeah, it was awesome, man. That's one of my highlights, one of my memories. Seeing that group now, I mean, still keep in contact with, a handful of those kids, and, one's coaching at DO, and some are, successful. A couple are, getting into the police academy, and our center fielder, PJ Gonzalez, has just gotten UNLV medicine. He's going to be a doctor. So we had a really good, it's a rare group. I mean, I know you only coached that 1 year, but you've been around kids, and you see it so much that, it's a rare group. You don't get those too often.
Yeah. Well, so we'll back to that game. So this game was at Bishop Gorman.
Yeah.
And to kind of maybe give a bigger perspective, so Joey Gallo, this is his senior year.
Yep.
This is a playoff game. He's projected to go in the first round, and there was at least 30, 40, there could have been 40 plus scouts there. It was
Absolutely.
It was big. People are everywhere. So I'm coaching first base during this game. We would kind of switch off, and I happen to be coaching first base at that last play of the game, where there's a play at home plate, and you win the game, it's over. Our guys, the Gorman players are screaming and yelling because they think he's out, right? And then you guys are hooting and hollering and excited because you just won. So I'm as a first base coach, I'm walking down the line, and I start to see some of our players looking at your players, and I'm like, oh boy, here we go. Like the eye contact, right? Emotions are high. So now they start chirping at each other.
Yep,
So the next thing I know is myself, Nick Day, Chris Latham, we have Ben Rosenthal and Mike Nanini. We're trying to get our players and go back because these guys are about to brawl, right?
Absolutely. They're ready to go. Absolutely.
Yeah. And Zach was fired up, right? He wanted to do some damage. And so, yeah, it was, there's not many high school games that have that type of intensity. I think it happens at a playoff state games where those, if you're in Vegas, everyone knows if you're not a part of Gorman, you want to beat them really bad.
Absolutely.
Right. They're the big team. They, quote, recruit, whatever it is, whatever Gorman does that the non-Gorman parents really dislike, you could say.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, I just remember all that, basically breaking up fights, and it kind of sucked because that turned into, usually after every game, you shake hands, the teams walk through, basically the courteous thing to do.
Yeah.
And I and some of our coaches saw like this is not going to happen. I'm just like, go down the line, just get down the line because this ain't going to be good.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. So it was interesting.
Yeah. No, that honestly, I mean, it's hard too, and you said it perfectly. It's, it was a great game. I mean, it was just a fantastic game. Ton of scouts there. Emotions high. I mean, you hate to see that at the end of a game, something like that, and that's what, a memory pops up, because that's so I get all the time. You guys remember when we didn't brawl Gorman? Let me explain. So I mean, that's one of the first things that pops up all the time. But yeah, it was it was a well played game, and like I said, I mean, they came back and were able to beat us twice in the region championship and move on. And it's one of those years though. It's tough. I mean, I talked to Nick Day about this too right after. Nick was awesome, stand-up guy. Called me after, said, hey, congratulations, great year. But it was state was up north that year, so
Yeah.
only one team from our region got to advance, and there was no play-in game that year. So I mean, it's just the way crumbled. But when I look back, even at Arbor, I mean, that group went 32-6. Got to play a lot of good baseball, and that it was an amazing group of kids. Great, really, really good group of kids that year.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, Zach Intana went on to be a third-round pick that year.
Yeah.
Joey Gallo ended up being, I believe, a supplement pick. Probably could have been a top 15 pick if things worked out correctly for him. And we know where Joey's gone. Zach played quite a few years in the minor leagues.
Yeah, and that's a lot of college athletes, from both sides there too, Division I and junior college guys. And that's one thing I think everybody forgets is, I mean, I don't know how many home runs Gallo hit in high school that year, 20, whatever it was something ridiculous. But I know he didn't pitch at all that whole year, until he faced us in that region championship. And, he comes in out of nowhere throwing 97, 98, 99. It's like our kids are looking at me.
I heard he hit 100.
He might have hit 100.
Scout had him. One scout had him hit 100. So in high school now. That's crazy.
High school, and I'm coaching third, and I'm watching his first pitch. I'm like, I mean, it looked like a golf ball coming out of his hand when I'm coaching third. And I'm looking at our hitters, like just confident at bats, and luckily he spun a curveball, hit one of our kids, and we had a chance, and we put ourselves in position. And then he reached back and topped out at 98, 99, 100, whatever it was, and it's impressive.
Yeah. Yeah. Impressive. Good luck with that, right?
Yeah, exactly. Foul it off, do something, get on the plate. I don't care. Just find a way.
Yeah. So you spent a few years coaching at Arborview, and you've been coaching the Southern Nevada Bulls club team here for a while. Tell us about how that all started for you.
Yeah. So that was it kind of stemmed from a good friend of mine, Rick Berry. Rick Berry was an old, he's not old. He'll get mad when he hears me say that he's old. He had an older son who played at Durango, and they had a club team going. This is a long, long time ago, and I think they were called the Toros or whatever it was. So the Southern Nevada Bulls, where that came from, was in 2009. I took over Arborview. That was my first, job over there. I was getting ready to start Legion. The administrators were awesome. Hey, do what you need to do for the summer. We'll support you. They just said, we just don't want you to, names can't be Arborview and they can't be Aggies. And I'm like, okay. And I was at the time, I was like, okay, what's an Aggie? I didn't even know what an Aggie was. Well, it's a Bull. I'm like, okay, we'll be the Southern Nevada Bulls. So that's kind of where the name came from. We'd use our Legion teams, under that name. So I stopped coaching. My last year of coaching at Arborview was I guess it would have been the summer of 2013. It was a year we graduated, 13 seniors. That group stayed together. We ended up winning the Connie Mack state title that year. Went to Seattle in the regional. So that's when I had stepped down, and I, got in touch with Rick Berry, and we talked. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to coach high school, but what if we get something going? Kind of started in my head. Actually, my old agent, Kevin Kohler, a guy who coached with me as well at Arborview, he had done stuff in the past, and he talked to me about it a little bit. And we were actually in St. George. I guess the initial conversation came up in St. George. We were playing Desert Hills High School at Dixie State. And looking at some of the Desert Hills guy, Dylan File, who's actually I think he ended up in AA or AAA this year with Milwaukee.
Yeah.
He was there, so we got a real good group together in the fall, and we just kind of kept it going from there. So we had our 18U going. It turned into a summer club that kept going with some college kids that came back. Went back and played some, we weren't in a collegiate league, but we were able to play a lot of collegiate games, through Lake Havasu and Fresno and San Luis Obispo, Southern California. Teams would come out and play us, whatever it was. So we kept that going. Then it kind of transformed into a younger group, which with my son, who's a 2022 grad this year. So he started off playing club ball when he was a young kid. With Dave Risky was one of his coaches, Nick Garitano. So he was surrounded by good guys, and we live out in the northwest part of Vegas, and we were traveling to the M, pretty far. My wife was pregnant at the time, so we ended up taking that younger group, some of the kids from our side, and we just kind of kept it going. And it's blown up pretty good. I mean, over the last, going on 10, 11 years, I mean, we have 3, 4, 5, 6 teams, all the time. And, a lot of kids, a lot of, college kids, or a lot of kids in our program were able to, play at the next level, not because of us or whatever, but we just gave them an opportunity to go out and play and get them around, other kids from, Southern Utah and Las Vegas. We had a lot of kids out of St. George, Utah, come join us as well. And, then they have a blast. We try to get into as many bigger tournaments as we possibly can, and, try to get them in front of coaches. And that's one of the big thing I think that, I try to talk to them about mostly is, just try to be honest with the kids. I mean, that's kind of the big word, and it's been the big word for the last couple of years is, hey, we got to get exposure. We got to be seen. And, we just I try to be honest with them. If you throw 74 miles an hour and you want to go to all these exposures, you're going to be exposed that you throw 74 miles an hour. Not that you're not a good player, just right now, just be cognitive of where you're at. But yeah, it's taken off pretty good, and we're still kind of bouncing all over the place, playing as much as we can. And coaching high school has kind of deterred some of it as much as we could possibly do. And baseball in Las Vegas and even Southern Utah, all in our surrounding area, I mean, it's extremely competitive. I mean, It's extremely competitive right now, and it's fun. I mean, we always try to play the best we can, win, lose, whatever, but we want to put ourselves and the kids in position that they can be around the best players, so for them they can kind of see this is where I'm at, and go out and compete against them.
Yeah, absolutely. It's fun. I know I participate on the club scene when I can. My son's just a year older than yours, so we play in the CBA. It's called CBA Summit, which is a mixture of Vegas kids and St. George and Salt Lake kids.
Yeah.
So we're in the process of Arizona's been shut down again, so it's the only thing that's even available to go to is up in Southern Utah or in Salt Lake. So we get, tournaments coming up through there. So you've also mentioned that you deal with not only baseball players, but some cross-country players. So let's kind of dive into like the mental side of maybe both of these sports. What do you see the correlation between those two?
Yeah, it's so first off, I got into cross country where administrator came to me and we were sitting there talking and about coaching cross country. I mean, and I got in late, and I told him honestly, I said I don't know anything about cross country. I don't run. I didn't run. So at Centennial High School, they had a pretty good history, up until about they still do, but going into it, and I go out there my first day, and it's boys and girls, and I've never coached girls in my life.
Right.
And I go out there, and I'm just sitting there watching, and I'm like, these guys are running 4, 5, 6, 7 minute or 7 miles, and they're fine. They like it, So my first year, kind of just it was more of sitting back and just kind of watching the whole thing unfold. Going to races. I'll be honest, my first race, I had no idea I had zero idea what to do. I didn't know how kids were supposed to line up. How many ran? I mean, I was, as green as can be. But, from 2015 to 19, I really started learning a lot. It takes a lot when it's 110 degrees outside. Guys, you got 5 miles, you got no water, come back and get it done. And I was able to really kind of tie in, baseball with running or cross country, not just those two sports, but with all sports. The one thing that I kind of really fell down or I guess discovered, I should say, is like preparing a runner is like preparing a pitcher. I mean, it's 100% the same. So when I'm looking at it right now, Our cross country kids, they're getting, 2 months of, mileage and just time, so the way we kind of relate that to baseball is, this is their long, as a pitcher, hey, you got a few months to play and catch, get the arm in shape before you get off the mound. This is your long toss phase,
Yeah.
and then as we get closer to the season, we don't go as hard as heavy, we do a little bit more, quick work, I should say. And that's like, pitchers getting off a mound, throwing bullpens and, spinning some breaking balls and getting a fill. And then, just like you would before a race or, you're pitching, you're going to kind of go easy and get yourself ready. The mental side of running, to be able to be out, it's easy when everybody's there watching it. It's easy to do. When you're finishing, you're starting, everybody's there. It's really easy to do. It's when you're out in the middle of nowhere and there's no one there but you. That's where we really try to spend some time and talk to our kids. So we talk to our kids a lot more, sometimes in the actual run about, hey, what are you thinking right now? How do you feel? When you feel like you can't do it, what makes you get there? And dealing with the kids right now, boys and girls, and honestly, I gotta say it, girls are tough as nails. They are, tough as nails when they're a little bit, different than the boys, than you would see them, hanging out, but, they're tough kids. And, the mental part of, that I can't do it, and, just watch them, have that confidence of wherever it is, to get to the point that they can, do anything, on a run or whatever it is. It's really neat to see. We do a lot of, we do a lot of, runs that, hey, you guys right now, all you're going to do is talk to yourself. Guys, I want you guys to have a normal conversation like you and I are talking right now. Like that's where you should be. That's going to be one of your longer runs. The whole point of that is to really try to keep them relaxed. And that's the biggest thing is of just keeping them as relaxed, carefree, and fun as you possibly can. Baseball is the same way. Everybody said it. It's such a true fact. You fail more than you're going to succeed, and I think, with baseball, running, whatever sport it is, it's such a, I want a result right now, society that we're in. Well, I went to the cage once, so now I should go 4 for 4 that next. Well, it doesn't work like that,
It'd be nice if it worked that way, right?
It would be awesome if that was that easy. But, we really, we give them, we talk to them all the time about, hey, these goals right here that you have, they're going to take a year sometimes to accomplish, and there's baby steps along the way. And, the days you don't feel good, the days you're struggling, but you can get up at 5 in the morning and you're running by 6 a.m. That's a huge accomplishment, trying to teach them to win those battles, with themselves, and as small as it is of, being able to wake up at 5 a.m. and show up to practice, that's a huge accomplishment. You've already accomplished something for yourself that day. You've already won half the battle. Then the run and everything else that you do along the way, that's going to be, that's just a bonus. So I think we really set more, small, goals that turn into these big, long goals as we go and I think that's one of the biggest things. Just from more of a pitching background for me, I think the biggest thing is, there's some days you feel horrible on the mound. Your breaking ball might not work. You can't, locate this. You have no run on your fastball. You don't know what's going on. And I think the one thing that, I've been fortunate to be around a lot of really good coaches, playing for a lot of good coaches. And one thing I learned is, when you're on the mound, you might not feel good. That's just the time to get it done. So we preach a lot with practice, with baseball, with running. And then when you're out in the race and you got, 400 other people in your race, you just go run. When you're on the mound, you go get it done, have a plan, and go execute. But I think that's the biggest thing that for us, running wise, baseball wise, is making them just beat those small little, daily goals. And as dumb as it sounds, even if it's something that is, sorry, I don't know where my phone is. Even if it's something that, like I said, waking up, we joke around with our kids all the time. They're 115 pounds. They're tiny kids, they're 6 feet, whatever they are. But, the one thing that, we joke around with them quite a bit about is, I mean, you got to control the diet. I mean, as funky as that is and as weird as that sounds, I mean, you got to have enough self-determination that, you're not going to drive by Taco Bell, after a practice, after you just had a lot of work and go eat 10 tacos, that you're going to bed early. So getting them, it takes a while for them to do it. We've had a very good, and I know that's another big word around right now is culture.
Yep.
We've had an amazing culture of group. Even before I got there, I mean, there was, 2 state championships on the boys' side before. Girls had just won one. And, in the last 5 years, we've between the boys and girls, we've been able to be, have, 6 state championships, as we've moved on. And it's not so much that, like I joke with the kids all the time, hey, I'm not running. I ain't racing. I'm not running for you. This is something that you guys have created and, go with it, and they hold each other accountable. And I think that's been one of the biggest, influences in our program is, the kids really do hold each other accountable. If the kid's not there, I don't have to say a word. They're calling them, and they're making sure that kid's getting a run in.
Yeah.
And I think that's been the biggest thing that's taken, from the cross country aspect over the edge.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Yeah, I know that's a totally different world in regard to. I people ask me all the time, like, why do you play baseball? It's like, because I only have to run to the outfield and just stand there, right?
Absolutely. And honestly, the kids ask me the same thing. Ask if I'm going to do the warm. I'm like, no, I'm not going to do it. I'll run 90 feet to the pitcher's mound and to the dugout, but that's it. But we have a guy who's been with us for a few years now that he does Ironman, competitions, and he loves it. He'll ride his bike, 90, 100 miles, and I'm just like, dude, what are you doing? Like, how is this fun? But he's got to that point where, he's a little guy. He's like 5'5", 5'6", 100 pounds maybe. But he's like, you know what? He goes, this is what I want to do. He goes, no one's going to tell me I can't do it. It's me against the world, and I'm going to go beat it. And so that's been a real huge addition to you. But I mean, I agree with you 100%. I didn't even want to run to the outfield. That was too far for me. I mean, I was fortunate to play third base in high school and run to the dugout and to the pitcher's mound, and that was good enough for me.
Right. Yeah, I was like, man, let's go do bowling or something like that, No, that's awesome. Yeah, I know with conditioning, that's a whole different ball game. I know with pitchers, if you're a pitcher that, running poles, doing your long distance work, doing your sprints, that's all part of the process of becoming what you want to become. And you can certainly tell for those kids that lack off, and I'm going to, maybe the coach isn't looking, so I'm going to skip this one. You start to see that kind of balance and even out, and those players that are actually continuing to do that work, they actually start to surpass those players. And then those players wonder why, well, how come he's passing me? Oh, because you're not putting the work in.
Absolutely. No, and that's the biggest thing right there too, baseball wise, especially. And I mean, and you've seen it too. You get a lot of kids that are, look like, grown men, have a beard in 7th grade and 8th grade, and and they still, a lot of them still, do well as they go, but they've been, the guy or whatever for so long that they start taking some of the stuff for granted. Not all of them, but there's some here, and you get those, late bloomers that all of a sudden they catch up and, they work their tail off. And that's one of the biggest things too, I mean, baseball wise, running wise, any sport wise, absolutely. I mean, you just got to outwork people, and I think, for us, we've been fortunate, even at Centennial, with baseball and with cross country. There's been a lot of guys and girls that have come through that, that have a lot of talent. And, I think us as coaches, I think the one big thing we've done is, hey, you got an opportunity, I mean, there's four third basemen, who's going to work, who wants it, go get it. There's, X amount of arms, 10, 11 arms, and here's your opportunity, who's going to go get it done.
Yeah.
With running, I mean, we can run 7, and we've been 13, 14, 15 deep that we've been able to put into a state race, and we have the kids run off against each other. We have them race in one of the division championships, and who wants it more, and yeah, I mean, I agree with you 100%. I think it's it's the little things that nobody sees. I know a lot of people say that, and it's so true. It's the little things that nobody sees, that you're doing, that little extra, step you're taking, or, if you're not sprinting through that line, you kind of break down, and running, and, even as a pitcher, I mean, those are the two biggest things. I mean, I can kind of correlate it with is, I mean, I knew how I felt. I knew how I personally felt, but and for me, I wasn't the fastest. I didn't throw the hardest, but I knew what I needed to do, to be to that, to get to that next level that I wanted to get to. And that's one of the biggest things we try to instill is, just because we have a 40-minute run, it's okay to do 41 minutes.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah.
we have, whatever it is for core that day. We got 20 push-ups, let's say. It's okay to do 21. So that's the one thing we really try to instill in our kids. And it's weird as it is, those kids that do 21 push-ups or that one extra one, come November when state comes, they're in the top of the state, and they're working the tail off, and the results happen, and that's the biggest thing is, trying to instill into 14, 15, 18-year-old kids that you got to do a little bit more, even though you're good right now. You got to do a little bit more, and that's the hardest thing, to get them to believe in themselves that they're talented right now, but they could be better.
Yeah, it just reminded me of that quote. It's maybe paraphrasing a little bit, but it's you basically rise to your level of training, right?
Absolutely.
You're going to rise to that. It's hard to just flip the switch and just say, okay, I'm ready to go, and you haven't practiced, you haven't practiced how you want to perform in the game, and you just expect it to happen. That's very difficult to do.
Yeah, no, it is. And, I guess I've been around high school sports now for about 14 years. And, for me, I mean, I think I got to learn, or it took me a while. I think being, my first head coach job was at Arbor. For me, when I look at it now, my first year or two, I don't think I was a good head coach. I think I knew the X's and O's, and I knew what I should do. But I don't think I knew how to manage people. And I think that's the one thing that's really helped the programs, looking at it as we went. And, I was able to play for, Calvin Valvo at Cimarron High School, who's in the Hall of Fame here in the NIAA, hard-nosed guy, wanted it a certain way, demanded everything perfect. And, I went to college at Dixie,
Yeah.
played for Mike Littlewood, who Mike's a pretty laid-back guy, but, he wants it a certain way, and you've got to perform. So I felt that transition going from, pretty hard-nosed, in-your-face guy to Coach Littlewood, who this is the expectations, you're going to do it or you ain't going to play. It really helped me. Playing for Rich Hill at University of San Diego, who's another kind of eccentric guy. At the time, we didn't know. I mean, now it's kind of a little norm. But at the time, we had meditation days, and, we're on the beach, figuring out, counting sand and how it's going to correlate. At the time, I'm like, well, what are we doing? But there was always a message there. And he was another one that he saw so many small details. All those coaches had those different personalities. So I think I was fortunate to really play, or to play for those guys. And that really helped me out as a coach. And then when I got to Arborview, I mean, like I was just saying, I think I understood the game pretty well, of the X's and O's of what to do, and I could see stuff, at the high school level. But I didn't know how to manage kids. I was, reverted back to, this is how you're going to do it, and everybody's going to hit like this, and everybody's going to do this, and then Kevin Kohler again, guy was there. He's like, he called me out one day. I'm like, what did I do wrong? This is the only thing I know. He's like, no. He goes, this kid hits like this. Let him be. Sit back and just watch him this summer and let him play. And that was a big moment. Going from that, like we talked about earlier, that 11 to 12 year where, it wasn't so much that they took more swings or they did. I know that helped, but they were so loose. They were loose. They were confident, and I think really taking it that year for those next 2 years, we had some good success. We didn't win a state championship, but kind of taking that into that cross country year now, which we've won 5 in the last 5 years, of just, if you ever come out and watch our practice, you see kids that are just loose and having fun and, thinking about it, now, as a player or doing anything, teaching. I mean, if if I'm 10th or whatever, I'm not going to be very good, and so we kind of really, incorporated that. And like we went, like I said earlier, the culture of the kids, and just let them be who they are. And, instead of us always having to say, hey, look, you need to do this, you have to do this, they hold each other accountable, from our best, runner to, our bottom runners. Everybody, holds each other accountable, and it doesn't matter who you are. I mean, so the culture was is huge, and I think that really helped me out as a coach. When like I said, going back and looking at it, the coaches I was able to play for, very very good coaches, all of them. And but it took just the one guy to call me out, and I had to really look myself in the mirror, and I'm like, oh gosh, he's right, and um, that was a pretty big eye-opening day for me.
I think that's a big example of, I truly believe that's why everybody needs a coach, right? Everybody needs another perspective, somebody that's outside of the box to say, hey, like, this is going on here. This is what I see. While we're in this little bubble of, no, it's going to be my way or the highway.
Right.
But and possibly as a coach, we're creating interference, right, in our players without even knowing it.
Absolutely.
Right. And we're basically getting in the way of letting them go out to perform. Because I agree with that too. The more that I've been around kids, back in the day, it was always like, well, you got to treat everybody the same. And I totally disagree with that. Right. I think that everybody's got a different personality. They're going to relate to you differently. They come from different homes, different backgrounds, and mom or dad talk to them differently than how you are. So sometimes they don't react to you, different things like that. And once you kind of see that, and you're kind of able to take a step back a little bit, like, oh, wow, I didn't even realize I'm doing that.
Right. No, absolutely. And it is, it's, when, and that's the thing too. And I like to sit back and, and you said it perfectly. I mean, I love to learn. I think every year, whatever baseball game, there's always something that I try to sit back and learn from. Again, I've been fortunate to be around a lot of good guys, even from my son's, club team to, whatever it is. And I always try to take something from everybody, and how can I correlate that to what works for us? And if something's not working, how can we change it? But being open-minded, I think, has been, it is huge as a player, as a coach, and not being afraid to change. And like I said, going back to that, those first couple of years for me at Arbor, I wasn't going to change it all. This is how it's going to be, and we did okay, but it took a little bit to just for me to take a step back and get to a point where let's figure out what these kids actually like. And at my first 2 years, I didn't know the kids. I knew that they were showing up. I would write their lineup on who was hitting, who wasn't. But I think that's the one thing I really preach. Even right now, early, we're getting barely started with cross country right now. We don't start till the end of August with races early September. This first month, I just spend as much time with a new kid every day, or a couple new kids, or even the returners, and just get to know them. That's the biggest thing, get to know them. It's we try to kind of create that. We want you to do this every single day. We need you to do this every single day. But if they don't trust you, and if they don't like you, and as weird as that sounds, they're not going to do it. They're still high school kids, and it drives me nuts every single day. But when I look back at it, when I get home or over the course of time, I go to my classroom about 6:40 in the morning, and we have probably 30, 40 kids waiting at my door to put their bags in. They come to my classroom, and they just sit there together as a team. It drives me nuts because they're loud as can be. It's 6:40. I'm not a great morning guy. But when I look at it, it's like, what, this is where they're comfortable, and they trust each other, and they want to be around it. So, and it really did. Like I said, just for me, I really do. I try to, get to know kids, like you said, their home life, their background, whatever they want to share, that we can kind of grab them a little bit, that you can build the trust. And I think when that trust is built with that kid, gosh, the sky's the limit for them. They're not all going to be professional athletes or college athletes or whatever, but there's going to be something that they're successful at. and helping them reach that. That's one of the biggest things. And I always tell everybody we had a ton of kids from Arbor. I think we had 27 of our 30 seniors in 4 years move on to play college baseball. And I tell everybody it's not because I did it or whatever. I mean, they had to throw a pitch, they had to swing a bat, but if they're going to work and do the stuff they had to, I mean, I'll spend hours on the phone, trying to help them. And same with cross country. I mean, we have some runners at some pretty big D1s right now that are doing fantastic, and it's the same thing, and it's always neat when we can't, well, now we can't with the COVID, have them come back, but it's always neat to, have all of these alumni come back and share, their stories and, where they started. When you get those freshmen, that first day of practice that want to quit and, just hate it. And, to hear, we have a girl who's at Iowa State that came back, and last year she talked to the kids for a few minutes and she goes, I wanted to quit every second of the day, and then we went into that whole mental capacity of how long it really took her to get there. But yeah, it's, honestly, we were just in, Orem, Utah, over the 4th of July with our club team playing there. And, I'm just sitting there watching, this pitcher from Orem High School pitch, and I'm just looking at him like something doesn't look right. A little funky mechanics, whatever it was. Third base coach came over and, he goes, I forget exactly what it was, but it was something with his hip that it didn't fully, go. So he's like, he had to adapt this. And he goes, you know what? He goes, every day, he goes, it's just a blessing for this kid to be on the field. So for me, I kind of step back and I'm looking at our dugout. I'm looking at their team with everything going on with the COVID. I'm like, we're outside playing baseball right now. Where else could you be? So, not even so much, just coaching lessons, but just, it's neat to kind of take a step back and, just appreciate everything, that is going on and what we have and getting those good little moments.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of we were just up there as well playing in the Pathway tournament, and I think as coaches we get a little bit, they had no season this year, right? So they missed their whole year. They had months off, and now these kids are starting to get back. Some of them are playing in some of these summer tournaments.
Right.
And then for some reason we expect them the light bulb to come on, and just all of a sudden, if you're a hitter, all of a sudden you're just supposed to hit, right?
Yeah.
If you're a pitcher, all of a sudden you're supposed to throw strikes.
Correct.
And it's like we got to kind of lay back a little bit, like, hey, like these kids are under something that we've never experienced as adults in our lifetime. Like, let's just be excited that they're out on the field.
Absolutely. And as funny as it is, I agree with that. Our first game, our kids, I think we had 2 hits, whatever it was. And, our kids are frustrated, asking what they did with their swing and what they're doing here. And I'm like, we haven't seen a live pitch since March 13th, whatever it is. It's a new front toss and, hitting the cage and do whatever you want, but it's so different. And that, kind of like I was saying earlier, I think we're just, and I think it's society. I believe big in that it's in sport. We're just such a results driven, society right now that, we need it done right away and immediately. And, but yeah, just to see, at the end of the tournament and, just to see the kids' smiles, like, oh my gosh, I finally got to play baseball again, so it does, you take a step back, like, this is a game that they love and they finally got to do it. And, it was neat. It was really, really fun to see and neat to see, just the smiles on those kids' faces.
No doubt. Yeah, I have a blast going through and just coaching when I can. And, I'm not scouting right now. So we're just kind of at home and just to be, the kids even talk about, like, man, we're just excited to be out here. You can only play so many video games, and depending how strict your parents are with going out, with this going on, seems like things are a little more lax right now. At least I know we are as parents with our kids. I'm like, we can't let them go insane while they're in the house right now.
Yeah, no, I know we've let our kids go to the friends' houses a little bit now, and but it was it's like you said. It's something we've never gone through. Just from an athletic point of view, and I think the one thing too that it's okay, we lost baseball or whatever sport it was that you were playing, but how are 14, 15, 16-year-old kids going to deal with that? I mean, this is something they've always done, even when they're little kids and, they have to go here, do that. But I know for us, as parents, I mean, I think the one thing we try to do is really make them understand, hey, look, this isn't just happening to you. This is everybody in the country, everybody in the world.
Yep.
And this is a really good, learning experience for you, as hard as it is, and not being able to do it. Joking around with our daughter today, she's like, well, I'm bored. I don't know what to do. I'm like, well, you got to find something to do. You got to do something. And it's, for the kids to be bored, as weird as it sounds, I think it's a good thing for them, because they learn a little bit of mental toughness. Like, I have nothing to do. What can I do to make myself better today?
Yeah.
And that was one of the messages we sent out, to our athletes, at Centennial, mostly our runners. But, what even though this is going on, what can you do to make yourself a little bit better tough today? What can you do to get better? And how can you turn this into a positive? Taking the negatives, that there's so many right now going all over. How can you still make yourself better and be a good human being? And that's the biggest thing is,
Absolutely.
if you did something right today, and I'm a big believer, whatever happens, coaching wise, teaching wise, if I could just affect one person, make their life better, then I feel like I accomplished something. And, we try to put our, athletes in those same mindsets, every single day. Athletics are important. You're going to represent your school well, but I want you to be a good human, and how can you make yourself and someone else better?
Yeah, that's great, man. That's awesome. It's cool that you get to do both sides of that in, two different sports.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting how mindset, mental toughness, how it's all the same, right? It's how you interpret it for your particular sport. Maybe there's different strategies that you would use for baseball that maybe you don't use for cross country.
Sure.
But for the most part, it's about getting after it, right? And knowing that you're going to have your bad days, there's going to be obstacles, and what are you going to do when those obstacles come?
Absolutely. And, and with cross country, it's it's a lot different than baseball. I mean, I think the training's very similar, but, honestly, I mean, it's 2:00, after, you've gone to school all day, 8 at 10 in the morning, and it's 110 outside. How are you going to accomplish that day? And, it's hard, because you see a lot of kids, break down, and they can't do it. And, by the end, they can do it. And that's, it's just that really good positive talk. And that's, obviously there's always some negative, and you got to get after some kids sometimes. And, but, for me as a coach, I mean, I've never been a yeller. I've never really been a big screamer. Probably because when I was in high school, our high school coach yelled at us all the time. So I was like, I can't do that. But, for me, I've always told our kids, hey, if you make an error, you make an error, I'll talk to you when you get in the dugout, we'll figure it out. But I'm not going to scream at you across the field, and you already feel horrible. Everybody in the stadium saw you already make the error. There's no point in, going on that. Even, as a pitching guy, I've always let our pitchers and catchers call, their game as much as they possibly can, because I want them to learn even at a young age. And I've always talked to them about, hey, if you get beat, you get beat with your best. If you feel like you throw a fastball here and a breaking ball count, or vice versa, and someone, you give up a hit or whatever, if you felt confident and that's what you want, then I'm good with that. And then we'll have a discussion about, why we could have done it this way or a little bit different. But that's kind of been, my whole, I guess, coaching philosophy is, get beat with your best, I joke around with the cross country kids all the time. Like, if I go race these kids right now, they're going to beat me, but I'm going to give everything that I possibly can. And, we've had a few, I guess, breakdowns with cross country during races. In region championship, one of our top boys went out, he dropped out of the race. He had a complete mental breakdown. And, we're still able to advance the state that year. And, it was a really good lesson for him that, he went out trying to win the whole race, and he had a shot to. And, it just, when he felt that he couldn't do it, he completely broke down. He fell way back. And, he ended up being, top 5 in the state his senior year, ran at West Texas A&M. And he still talks about that all the day, all the time. He goes, that was my low point. And I beat my low point. now I'm able to kind of go, and go after. And I think one thing too, is, I know I've said it a lot, is the culture is, having support system, in place. We joke with our kids all the time. Hey, we probably see them sometimes more than their mom and dads do. I mean, they're there at Centennial at 6:40 in the morning, and they get home at 4:30. With baseball, sometimes I don't think we get home till 6. He's got lights, which has been, a curse. His private lights go on, and we're there all day. But we having that good support system with coaches. I mean, kids can talk to coaches, they can relate to coaches, I think, to a point. But we try to take it a step further and have that support system with each other. And if it's something that they can help out with each other, because most of those kids are going through the same thing. They feel the same physically, mentally. And with high school, there's always something. Especially with our girls program, there's always something. One of my first cross country races, I'm sitting there trying to find where the girls are, and they were upset because their bows were wrong color. I'm like, we're going to go for a region championship right now, and you're worried about your bows, and but that was their mental block.
Mm.
And, so now we prepare before, and they go out and do their things, but it's as small as those little things that can just throw them off. So having that support system with each other, that they can pick each other up, is huge. It's enormous. Okay, perfect.
So when you're kind of combining these two sports, you specialize in baseball, you're a baseball player. What would you say gives them and gives you, your mental edge as you go throughout your day?
With baseball, what would give them the edge in baseball?
Yeah.
For me, I mean, I was a 5'10" right-handed pitcher. I was never a big, I wasn't a big draft guy. I wasn't this, wasn't that. I try not to ever talk about, my whole career during the whole time. I was fortunate to play minor league baseball for a couple of years, Division I baseball. I'll tell them stories about it, but I think the thing for me that I really try to get to them, and I'll mention a lot, is, guys, I'm 5'10". Most of you guys are bigger than me right now. You guys are bigger than me. You guys probably threw harder than me. But the one thing I knew that I had to do was every step of the way is I had to produce. I just had always had, confidence. It doesn't matter, who it was, that, this is what I have. I have an 88-mile-an-hour fastball, and I'm going to go beat you.
Right.
I can throw a slider whenever I want, have a changeup, I can throw it for a strike, but I'm going to go beat you. If you meet me, I'm going to tip your hat, but I'm going to beat you next time. Honestly, one of the big, influences, was Mike Littlewood. And, my sophomore year, we were ranked in the top 5 all year, advanced to the Junior College World Series. I guess 2 people that year. One was Brandon Lyon, who played in the big league for a long time. So him and I was a Friday starter. Brandon was a Saturday starter. So it basically started whatever I threw on Friday. If I went 7 innings, gave up, no runs, 3 hits, Brandon was always in my ear. Hey, I'm going to give up 1 hit or 2 hits, and I'm going to beat you. So we went back and forth that year, and had a bad outing against Eastern Utah. And I think I went a third of an inning, 2/3 of an inning. I got rocked. I couldn't throw a strike. I gave up 5 runs. Coach Littlewood comes out, and he kind of looks at me, and he goes, "We'll talk when we get in the dugout." I'm like, "Okay." Didn't say a word to me the whole rest of the trip. I thought I was in trouble. I thought I was, I thought I'd never pitch again. Just you hit those points sometimes. And had a good conversation when we got back to St. George, and and he kind of just reminded me. He's like, "Hey, he said, Chris Martinez says like this, Brandon Lyon, you're not trying to beat Brandon Lyon, you're trying to beat, everybody else to get us to the World Series."
Right.
And that was a big point for me right there. But for him to, kind of step back and, have confidence right away, put me back in the next week and get after that was huge. So the one thing I think that I really try to tell our kids is, hey, be yourself. You're whoever, Johnny Jones, and you throw 78 miles an hour as a sophomore, that's okay. Learn to deal with it and learn to be who you are. And that's, the X's and O's, and, teaching them how to throw a curveball, all that stuff, or how to locate the fastball. That's important, and that's huge. That's a majority of it. But I think those kids that, really that we grasp onto, for me personally, is, just, there's a lot of guys like me, that are, 5'10", 88, that, people will look over. But, be yourself and just do the best you can with what you have, and don't try to be someone else. And for me, like I said, I can kind of look back at now and, small, minor league career, but, when I look at it, I was able to play in a junior college World Series, be part of the West Coast Conference champion at San Diego, and have a college degree, and, be able to provide. But that was a path, my life took me. And I think that's something, I try to tell the kids, is, there's a spot for you somewhere. You gotta outwork people and have that self-confidence that you feel horrible today, but you know what? You got to go beat somebody. And doesn't matter if it's cross country or baseball or whatever. That's the biggest thing. One of the big things I think, even from a pitching standpoint is, right now, I mean, like I said, we were fortunate. We had Zach Quintana. He was a 94, 95 guy. We had Evan McMahon, who was a 90, 92. Zach Hartman, who played in the Angel system. Buddy Board. I mean, we were loaded with arms. Centennial had Michael Wagner for a little bit. And we got some very good young arms right now at Centennial. And it's just the day and age. And this, everybody, how hard do you throw? And, which is important. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I love to see a 95 guy compared to a 75-mile-an-hour guy. But at the same time, when you're rearing back and throwing a fastball as hard as you can, it's going to the backstop, it's not helping the team. There's going to be times for those 94, 95s. And, Zach Quintana was a very good example where, every outing, and it's hard for a second. I mean, I think you probably have this too, and you played, and you got 20, 30, 40 scouts every single game, watching you. I mean, he was trying to do too much, and, halfway point of the season, we had a good talk, and, he pitched about 86 to 89, and then we had an 0-2 count. Then, let it go. Then flash your 94, then flash your 95. And then that 87, 88, whatever it was, turned into 91, 92, and he could pitch, and then it took off. But that's the biggest thing I think that I've always tried to do, is, try to get through the kids. Hey, man, just be yourself. This is who you are. This is what your tools are right now. Like we said earlier, we got some late bloomers, and you got kids who bloom in 7th grade, and, the physicality might not be there yet, but it's going to be there eventually. Yeah. So, love the game, be yourself, and then, just get after it.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I think that's a big part of too, when kids get so worried about getting drafted or getting to that real big college, that they might not just be ready physically or mentally. And most of them are ready mentally to go ahead. They have no clue what they're getting themselves into. Absolutely. Especially if they had it really easy at the high school level. There wasn't much discipline. They kind of do whatever they want. Then when a coach gets on them, their eyes kind of like, whoa, and then they don't know how to react to that, and then they can kind of certainly start to spin out of control a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, kids going away for their first time, and, and as weird as it sounds, just being able to wake themselves up and, do their own laundry, make sure they're eating, getting to bed right. I mean, absolutely. I agree with that.
Yeah. Well, Chris, man, this has been awesome. A lot of great information. I love how we were able to incorporate both some baseball and some cross country, because at the end of the day, this all applies to the same thing, and working on the mental game, working on all aspects of your life, right, to help improve and get better. But this has been great, man. I appreciate you coming on board.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I appreciate it a ton.
Absolutely. We'll talk to you soon, man. Thanks.
Okay, we'll see you later.